Wonderful.
To begin with, I'd like to thank my dear colleague, Professor Mahtab Alam Rizvi, and the great team of GNU inviting me for such prestigious conference covering very significant and mattering topic for Central Asians in the context of our cooperation with a dear partner of whole Central Asia as India. Okay. Why did I choose the topic in the context of Central Asian view on India's rational diplomacy? Because I think rational choice model and the concept brilliantly analyzed and presented to us by the concept of Barrington Moore and Weingast can expose to whole academia and the researchers the significance of the India's diplomacy today, especially in the regional context, in the context of the Central Asia, South Asia development process. Because the certain elements work to prove this attitude of India, demonstrating India as a kind of the important and significant sample for the rational diplomacy concept for Central Asians, to understand the specifics of tackling very hard tasks now raised in international relations today. So Ukrainian crisis highlighted the nature of global instability and negative impact on the interests of significant regions of the globe, especially Central Asia, which compelled them to reconsider the security approach. So modern Central Asia tends to pursue a pragmatic policy primarily based on the interests of members, understanding the evaluation of the stabilizing mechanisms of contemporary international relations. In this context, through understanding the India's experience in shaping rational diplomacy, very pragmatic peacekeeping and more positive, more constructive diplomacy in the international context, and tackling security challenges deserves special interest for Central Asian academia in the wider context. So renewing efforts to develop Eurasian relations have piqued India's interest in long-term cooperation. The improved relations between Central Asia and Afghanistan have established new parameters for India's efforts to bring peace to the whole region. The new initiatives by some Central Asian states to take a more active role in global and regional issues will increase opportunities for collaboration with India as a very close partner in international, institutional, multilateral and bilateral context. To settle common issues in their security agenda. So therefore, Central Asians have a greater interest in collaborating economically with more advanced regions and the nations and economic groups. Through such collaboration, they can acquire cutting-edge technologies, update and build industrial facilities for the highest caliber. So the choice of trading partners is now based on the opportunities offered and the viability of the business. At the moment, the region's more a political club than allows the state's interests to be brought together and harmonized. So it can also be referred as an economic community, albeit to a much lesser level. So the following message vividly approves India's rational approach to international relations, responding to a question on India's official position on Ukrainian conflict. India's External Affairs Minister Subramanian Jaishankar underlined that Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. And we Central Asians completely subscribe to the position of the fantastic diplomat of India. That is to say that following that idea, very important partner of Uzbekistan, Minister Subramanian Jaishankar, once mentioned that India never played a role of someone's camp in their policy. The same Central Asians will never be played as the puppets of other countries. That's why this approach and this attitude of Indian diplomacy is fantastically going. There's a parallel to the attitude to the Central Asian diplomacy. So last December, taking up the G20 presidency, India has developed a keen awareness of the difficulties faced by poor nations. India is steadfast in its commitment to collaborating with the other G20 countries to address pressing concerns with debt, economic growth, food and energy security, and particularly the environmental issues. As India's minister once again noted, one of the top priorities will continue to be the governance reforms of the international financial institutions, keeping the presidency and leading such international platform like G20. At the recent Quad summit in Tokyo, India once again reaffirmed its adherence to the policy of non-alignment, refusing to support anti-Russian sanctions, which once again backed its status quo and prevented it from direct involvement in conflicts or utilizing it in games for the benefits of other nations. So India's External Affairs Minister Subramanian Jaishankar at the 77th UN General Assembly greatly highlighted India is commemorating Azadi Ka Amit Mahotsav, or 75 years of independence, where millions of common Indians worked hard, were tenacious, inventive, and entrepreneurial throughout that time. So India proudly growing its peacekeeping capacity, sending vaccines to more than 100 nations in the world, and bridging partnership to various countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America through efficient foreign policy or foreign aid methods. So that is very importantly symbolizing the effectiveness of the rational choice diplomacy for us to understand and to use this diplomacy for our students during our lectures to understand the new approach in international relations. That is good symbol and good case for rational diplomacy in contemporary relations. So its diplomacy now focused on the greater future improvement of green transformation, where India is playing a leading role. That is very important for us to understand the green building green economy and the specifics and the basis of the green economy. And India is showing us good samples in the process of Central Asian green transformation. So being the largest democracy in the world, India has never served as a camp, as I mentioned it, or as an instrument for the interests of other nations. And that fact positively proves India as a rational actor today. Traditionally, it has processed from the principle of respect for the political choice and preferences of its partners in Central Asia. New Delhi quite soberly assesses its role in modern political process in the world. In previous decades, India actively used the potential of multilateral diplomacy, preferring it as a neutral sphere of international relations. So today, the new India is acquiring new financial and industrial opportunities to its Central Asian partners, because India is well-known technological flag in global economy. Nowadays, India's economic and political maturity has reached such level as a level that any other country can threat to its development. So a number of adopted strategies are aimed at these goals, including the development of India's economic and military power. So geopolitical crisis in Eastern Europe has halted the implementation of China's ambitious trans-regional transportation project and paralyzed Russia's model of economic integration within the Eurasian Economic Union, showing the pace of regional economic cooperation. So in that context, India, as we mentioned it before, is playing the role of alternative balancing power for Central Asians as a good option and alternative. So the first informal summit of Central Asian leaders held in Astana in March 2018 underlines the present push for regional cooperation and reaffirming the value of learning from India's experience in finding common solutions to difficulties in contemporary economic situation in the world. India's interest in sustainable cooperation and collaboration has grown as a result of renewed efforts to strengthen Eurasian connections or connectivity. The achievement of this goal will greatly depend on the active Indian diplomacy in Central Asia, since New Delhi soberly assesses the futility of acting in this direction alone. These, among other things, explain it and motivated India's entry into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, acting in cooperation with the countries of Central Asia in the India plus Central Asia format, where they share similar and common approaches for the development agenda. So intensifying cooperation between Central Asian states and India in agricultural, small and medium-sized businesses, pharmaceuticals and information technologies can also provide tangible benefits for all Central Asian nations. New guidelines have been established for India's efforts to bring peace to Afghanistan by the improvement of ties between Central Asia and their southern neighbor. India has an interest and serious interest in dialogue with the reputable Afghan government in Kabul, which is not dependent from Pakistan, over the aid of its people and ensuring peace in its soil. India recently provided Afghanistan with 50,000 metric tons of wheat after the August 2021. And several shipments of medications and vaccines, and its overall investment has today reached the amount of $4 billion US dollars to Afghanistan. So New Delhi understands that continued financial support for the new government in Kabul will have a positive effect to unite Kabul and to assist Kabul from Pakistani dependence and domination, and will serve as a rehabilitation partner for the process of the crisis management in Afghanistan. So such factors push Central Asian countries to re-evaluate the economic, diplomatic and transport potential together in cooperation with India, and not only in that context, but in the wide bunch and elements and factors of the regional or intra-regional development. So with this, I wanted to wrap up.
Thank you, Professor Khasanov.
Thank you very much. You very rightly emphasized how both India and Central Asian countries, especially Uzbekistan, also Kazakhstan, have been following independent, pragmatic, in case of Central Asia, multi-vector foreign policy. And there is so much that the two regions and countries can learn from each other. Both have had their own distinct historical, cultural experience, one as a post-colonial state, the other as a post-communist state. They have been trying to follow an independent path, both in terms of their domestic politics, also foreign policy. So their experiences in this regard are comparable. And thank you for highlighting the rational choice approach in trying to understand and analyze Indian foreign policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Pandit ji. आपने बिल्कुल अच्छे तरीके से सरमाइज कर दिया. Thank you, Professor Khasanov. Now I will